making this video update about the presidency of Trump and what's been happening and where things could be headed based on the astrology. I've done some interesting research that I want to show you. It's no mistake that I was extremely vocal about what a mistake I thought it would be to elect him president. I didn't see, and I still don't think there was any equivalence between the danger that he posed and the danger that Hillary Clinton posed. Even though I was no Hillary Clinton fan, she's a corrupt politician and had a lot of baggage, she at least was qualified and equipped to do the job because she knew how government worked, how the world worked, excuse me, understood our alliances, all of these things that at the very least would not just send things into utter chaos. And now we have Trump, who is an embodiment of the chaos that I just mentioned. And right after the election, I made an update where I discussed the fact that he had just moved into a new dasha. He had just gone into Jupiter dasha. He had been in Rahu Mars dasha through the whole campaign, and he definitely embodied this Rahu Mars energy of kind of like just blowing up everything to try to get power. And I said it was possible that once he became president, because he was now in Jupiter dasha, at least by his standard, he was going to really rise to a highest level of good and guidance and inspiration and purpose that he's capable of. And that's true. And whether one agrees that there's been improvement or whatever is not really the point here. He is in his Jupiter dasha and he's doing his best to lead and inspire. And to many people he is. There are certainly his hardcore supporters who, even in the midst of all of the recent, the advent of alternative facts, and the media is the enemy of the people, and the overt or covert, frankly, lies about mass voter fraud and the thin-skinned, insecure need to justify why he lost the popular vote, and just the avalanche of misinformation that we've seen. There's still a hardcore group, probably about 25 to 30%, maybe probably more or less around that, who, frankly, no matter what he does, they will stick with him. The rest, even of his voters, are much softer. They're people who voted against Hillary Clinton. They voted for someone to just kind of shake things up. But he is going to lose and is already starting to bleed those supporters who want him, who couldn't care less about all of that rhetoric. In fact, they voted for him in spite of that. Many of his voters, the people that actually voted for him, he had a 17% disapproval rating amongst the people that voted for him, which is not that unusual. There's always a bit of a disapproval gap. That's higher than most, and I think something like a third of the people that voted for him thought he wasn't qualified for the job. These are hard numbers that were taken after the election, like while people were voting. So that support is soft, and his rhetoric since becoming president it's galvanizing that hardcore, and it's going to wind up bleeding off others as we go forward. But that's not the point of this video. On January 10th, I predicted, when that dossier was leaked to the press, that come eclipses, come eclipse time, which is where we're at now, we were going to see scandal erupting around leaks, intelligence, Russia, perhaps his personal information, and it happened like right on cue with the lunar eclipse that happened in February, February 12th or whatever date that was. Now, I said it was going to happen on the solar eclipse. That's when I said by the time of the solar eclipse, or shortly before or shortly thereafter, we were going to see the contents of that dossier really blown up. It was kind of dismissed at the time, of course, as fake news. In fact, that's what started the whole fake news thing for him. I knew at the time when it was released, when it was leaked, that it wasn't fake news, that it wasn't going away. And I have copies of the article that I posted on Facebook and the prediction and whatnot here on this page so you can see it. And what I said at the time was that his constant battling with intelligence community especially was going to come back to haunt him. We have to understand that these agencies have the, you might say, they have the dirt on all of us, okay? And especially anyone who rises to power. When I saw that Intel dossier leaked, what it showed me at the time, and what I wrote in my article, was this was a shot across the bow to him and to anyone else watching, but mainly to him, to stop this undercutting of the intelligence. Because at the time that happened, this is when he was going around saying he didn't believe the Russians hacked the election. It could have been anybody, it could have been this or that. He had said up until that time fervently that he didn't believe it was Russia, it was fake news. He was calling the intelligence agencies like Nazi Germany. Again, if you're sitting here judging this saying, well, they are, and you're getting all worked up, that's not the point of the video. Try to have some discrimination about the subject. The point is, of course, the intelligence agencies, I don't agree with everything they do by any means. They're covert intelligence gathering. But what it showed me when they leaked that memo was they were saying, you better cut this stuff out because we can leak anything and bring you down. What happened immediately after that intel was leaked is he came out for the first time ever and said, yes, I believe Russia hacked the election. But it could have also been others as well, but he came out finally and said it. Before that, he had never said it. They leaked that memo, and he comes out immediately after that and says, yes, I think Russia was behind the hacking. But there's no evidence it through the election and all, which, by the way, that was a debatable point anyway. It wasn't debatable, and it's not debatable that they purposefully interfered in the election. He had never said it up until that time. As soon as that dossier was leaked, he said it. Many understood at the time, what I understood, was this was the intel telling him, if you're going to be president, you better cut this crap out. Because this is not going to work with you as president undercutting the intelligence that you're getting. So, fast forward to what happened with the Michael Flynn explosion. We now realize, or we now understand that, I think it was January 29th, Justice Department briefed his attorney, or his counsel, that they had information that someone was, was in conversation with the Russian intel. And they told him who it was, and he didn't tell Mike Pence or anybody else. And again, intelligence agencies told him this, and they were waiting to see him basically get rid of Flynn. That's what they were saying. Okay, this guy is compromised. This guy could be subject to blackmail. This guy's been in constant contact with Russian intelligence. And they were waiting for Trump to get rid of this guy because he's sitting in National Security Council briefings. You have to understand the severity of this. The intelligence community, this is the most highly classified information that we have. And someone receiving this information is in constant contact with Russian agents. And Trump did nothing about it. He did nothing about it, so what did they do? They leaked it to bring down Flynn, to get him out of the White House. Because they have, I would say, our best interest. They have the interest of national security, regardless of who the president is. So again, Trump was incredibly derelict. This isn't a matter of opinion. I mean, even Trump supporters, you have to understand. I mean, if you're a Trump supporter and you're thinking, oh well, you're just fake news, Sam. If you care about not having terrorists attack us or anything you can imagine, this highly sensitive intelligence is what keeps not just us safe, but it keeps us on the cutting edge of our stature in operating in the world with all kinds of operations. And so there are people literally that are constantly at risk to gather this information. The other thing, the other breach, and it's already starting to happen, is the information sharing and gathering is going to get really clogged up. And it's already starting because other countries will be less willing to share their intelligence with us. And it happens on multiple levels, all kinds of different levels of interagencies between governments. If they think it's going to compromise their intelligence agents, or they think there's someone in the White House who can't handle it or who doesn't understand the importance of the intelligence. So once they saw this, they leaked it, and then Trump got rid of this guy. And then, of course, Trump comes out, and instead of looking at the real issue, he attacks the leak. But the leak was necessary to get the cancer out of the Oval Office. So again, then it's misplace the aggression. Again, this is what Trump does. Then he comes out, first he says he fired him because he lied to Mike Pence. Then he comes out and says he was a good man and he was treated dishonestly by the press. Again, it's just the madness of this man in the Oval Office who has no comprehension even of what the threat levels are that he is now responsible for. And this was the part that was terrifying to anyone who really understands how government works about this guy as president. It's not the same threat level. By the way, if you want to look at corrupt level between he and Hillary, talk about corruption. But the point is this. It all came out on the solar eclipse. On the lunar eclipse in Trump's 12th house. So this 12th house is the house of leaks, losses, deception, lies. The reason there is leaking everywhere is because he doesn't have any loyalty, because you cannot cultivate loyalty by attacking everyone. He has attacked the media. He says the media is the enemy of the people. He's attacked intelligence community. He's attacked the Justice Department. He's attacked Republicans who oppose him. Of course, Democrats who oppose him. Everyone except those who agree with him. Everyone else. Federal judges. Of course, I haven't even talked about like the whole thing with the travel ban and all that. But loss after loss after loss. And of course his loyalists are going to say, oh no, it's been great, because everything he does is great. But it's been loss after loss after loss, and it really has come to a head since this eclipse cycle started. When it came out about Flynn, and then he let Flynn go, and then the bizarre news conference and a whole other thing. So we're in this eclipse cycle right now, and it's going until the solar eclipse that happens in his 7th house. I believe it's February 25th or 26th, depending on where you live in the world. That solar eclipse is going to be in his 7th house of other people. Other people include people like Mike Flynn. We've already seen the effects of the eclipse that I predicted back in early January, but it happened on the lunar eclipse, not the solar eclipse, which makes sense because it was his 12th house. I wasn't sitting down like meticulously plotting, and I was saying by the time we get to this eclipse in his 7th house, there's going to be huge problems. It happened when it went through the 12th, which actually makes more sense. If I'd have sat down and spent hours and hours looking at it, I would have said, well, that one there could definitely show it even more, or at least first. So on that eclipse in the 12th house, you see the leaks, the losses. When it gets around to the 7th house, the solar eclipse in his 7th house at the end of February, I think we could definitely see some personnel shakeups, if not flat out deceptions, more deceptions by the people in his circle, or more problems come forth with the people around him, like Kellyanne Conway Spicer, Bannon, he's surrounded himself with this crew of people who have no loyalty to themselves or to each other. They don't even have loyalty to Trump. You have to understand, this is why there's so many leaks. When other presidents take office, they have a group of loyalists around them because they treat them well, they're nice people, they're kind, they understand cohesion, they like seeing people get along, they're supportive. Trump does none of these things. He's well known for bringing people together, watching them fight with each other, enjoying watching them fight with each other, and then picking through the argument that he thinks is best. Now, this is not going to engender loyalty from anyone because you have competing factions constantly battling with each other. And if they think, and their aides or surrogates could leak the position that they don't agree with. Like Priebus and Spicer came from the Republican National Committee. They would have served any president. They don't care about Trump. In fact, they were against him for a long time during the campaign. Kellyanne Conway used to be Ted Cruz that ran a super PAC that supported Ted Cruz. There are many news reports of her talking about how Trump ripped off people at Trump University and should release his taxes and all this stuff everybody else says. A year ago, she was saying it. Steve Bannon sees Trump as a tool, literally as a tool. He even said Trump is like a blunt instrument that we can use like a tool. He said this back when Trump was a candidate. He didn't think Trump would win. So, again, these competing factions who have no loyalty to each other, this is where most of the leaking is coming from. And in fact, some of the most damning leaks are totally personal things where they talk about Trump watching too much TV and addicted to cable news and walking around the White House alone in his bathrobe and all of these, just trying to make him look like a fool. So the point is, when we have this solar eclipse at the end of February, we could definitely see more intense information come out around this dossier, the substance of what was in there, which has to do with the Russian leaks. As these investigations go forward, there's 4 or 5 panels now that are investigating this, some behind closed doors. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of a public outcry to have these things be made public. One thing is certain, this is the danger, and I knew it then. He's not going to win these wars. As much as we like to say Nazi Germany and all, he's trying to do that. He's trying to silence every bit of dissent. This is the same thing every dictator does. John McCain just said it. So people used to get mad at me when I said this when he was a candidate, and I said he's acting like a dictator or Hitler or whatever. Now you have senators saying it. It's a well-known strategy. Demagogue the issue and try to silence dissent through the media, the Justice Department, the intelligence community, and what he's doing is just trying to make it all seem like everything except what he says is false. If he says it, it's true. Everything else is false. Again, if he was a better messenger, it might work. But because he's not, because he lies so much, and even in ridiculous ways, like claiming Sweden had all these terrorist attacks and overt, either intentional lies like saying the media is the enemy of the people, or just ridiculous lies like the thing with Sweden or his inauguration numbers, because he's such a flawed messenger. The message doesn't work, and it's only going to get worse. He's in for a world of hurt, and so are we. So you're already hearing Democratic senators and congresspeople talking about evoking the 25th Amendment, Article 4, which is where the president can just be removed. He could also resign. He could just resign and say, this ain't no fun. I thought this was going to be a lot more fun than it is. We just saw this past weekend where he had to get out of the White House and get in front of cheering crowds again. Campaign rally. Campaign. He's only been in office a month. It's a campaign rally because that's what he wants to do. I said it a year ago. He doesn't want to be president. He wants to stand up in front of cheering crowds and tell everybody how smart he is and how dumb everybody else is. That's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to be president because president has nothing to do with that. Being president is work, hard work, measured, detailed, disciplined, focused, at least half the people hate you. Again, I talked about all this before, and I know this is not what he wants to do. And this is why I even said that Rahu Mars, I said it last year, Rahu Mars, he's like at the pinnacle of his power, where he feels powerful, and he was. And now he's not, and you can see he doesn't feel powerful now. I'm saying he doesn't feel it. And in fact, he's not, because while the campaign was going on, yes, he had adversaries and battles, but he was winning. Look at how much losing he's doing now. Even every time he does something, he has opposition to everything he does. Even within his own party, of course, at least more than half the country of the Democrats or whatever are vehemently opposed him, especially him because of he's come in with no mandate at all, having lost the popular vote, and again, has no grace or elegance to reach out to try to embrace those, and humility. No, immediately he starts these vicious edicts, these executive orders. He's trying to govern by executive order, which you can't do. To pass laws, you need to build consensus with your own party, even. I actually thought he would be even more measured than he is. I'm shocked at how, again, unhinged all of this is. Now, I just want to be clear. I'm not saying that I think this is going to get him impeached or this is going to be the end of the presidency or anything like that. I'm not saying that. In fact, this is a great opportunity for him to learn. And he might learn. He might. He's in Jupiter Dasha. Jupiter is now retrograde in the sky. All these losses could be really humbling for him. By the way, I'm not, when I say that he might learn, I'm not saying he's going to learn and then adopt better policies. I'm saying he might learn and then actually get more strategic and get better at accomplishing his goals, which at this point seems to be, wanting to be king. But this transformative time of this eclipse going through his 12th house, where we just saw these losses, and then the solar eclipse through his 7th house in a couple weeks at the end of February, can really show a time when you might see more defections and more losses, especially with people around him, maybe some of his important aides. Also, what is ahead is there's still all these investigations going on with these ties to the Russian government, and Flynn will perhaps and possibly be subpoenaed to testify about who knew what, and make no mistake, every one of those people will turn on him if they have to. No one will fall on the sword for him. This is my feeling. He will throw them under the bus and they'll throw him under the bus, if need be. And by the way, again, I don't want this to go on forever because I'm mainly talking about what I see as the timing, and I have one more thing to talk about which is pretty important. But understand, they already have enormous amounts of intel that nobody knows about. And just like they did with Flynn, they basically set a perjury trap. They already have evidence, then they'll come and interview you and ask you questions and see what you say. This already happened with Flynn. We already know he lied to the FBI. It's been leaked. And it's also been leaked that they're probably not going to pursue an indictment. But that's where it is now. Who knows where it goes in a couple months, or even in a few weeks, if they start seeing that there are more direct connections between Trump and Russia, or there's conversations between Paul Manafort. Again, anybody who doesn't understand this and thinks this is all just a lot of, nonsense, look into the background of these people. Paul Manafort, who was his previous campaign manager, was hired by Russia to get a Ukrainian leader installed. This is Rex Tillerson, Trump's Secretary of State, negotiated the largest oil deals in Russian history. Flynn was a guest of Vladimir Putin. This is, you have to be a little bit insane to not at least go, that's weird. That's just on the surface. That has nothing even to do with the fact that Trump can never say a bad word about Russia and Vladimir Putin, in addition to those other things. So I'm surprised and shocked that more people, like, again, hair isn't on fire about this, especially the Republicans, and there are some who are. And we're seeing the kind of, frankly, shameful conduct of some of the Republicans in the Senate, or in the House especially. Remember the guy who said, if Hillary Clinton is elected, we're going to have 2 years of investigations. This was just based on things was already been investigated. They're going to reopen the email investigation. They're going to investigate the Clinton Foundation. This stuff had already been investigated. Suddenly, his name is Jason Chaffetz, suddenly he has no interest in Donald Trump's obvious conflicts of interest with his business. They even mentioned any of that stuff. Conflicts of interest with his business, obvious connections to Russian oligarchs. And this guy was totally against Trump when he was running, when he thought Trump was going to lose, and when he was still trying to get Cruz or anybody but Trump last year. He was totally speaking out against all this stuff. But now, nowhere to be found. What is going to happen, the reason I'm mentioning this is because as these investigations grind forward and as we grind closer to this solar eclipse, we're going to start seeing more things come out, I think. Because there are a lot of Democrats on these panels too. They're bipartisan. And believe me, like I said before, anything can get leaked at any time. And Trump can rant and rave all he wants. He's made way too many enemies, and he continues to make enemies. And you can't go at war with the press in this country. Again, we're not Nazi Germany. We have a couple hundred years of democracy behind us, and a lot of institutions that are not going to be just hijacked by someone, especially as obvious as Trump. That's not the danger. The danger isn't we're going to become Nazi Germany. The danger is how much damage can be done with someone so unqualified. Even if he was just unqualified and not aggressively unqualified. He's not just unqualified, he's aggressive. He's spreading it everywhere. And it's almost like the rest of the world is saying, we're like playing chicken with the rest of the world, and the rest of the world is sitting back going, America, are you really going to let this guy stay president? Is this really what's going to happen? So, it's not an easy thing to undo. And again, this period now, with investigations and the potential exposure that could come, is a very tricky time. You see Trump doubling down and tripling down on his, media is the enemy of the people kind of stance, and his getting out in front of cheering crowds, trying to incite or trying to reinvigorate his populist appeal. But you also see an equally strong pragmatism against that. Every one of his cabinet members, the vice president, secretary of state, the what's his name, the military guy, I'm sorry, they're coming to me. It goes out and contradicts him all the time. Secretary of Defense, sorry. I was thinking Attorney General for some reason, but Secretary of Defense. They just made a trip overseas. They contradict everything Trump says all the time. Oh no, we're totally, Russia's going to pay, and then Trump is like, oh, Russia's fine. Of course, this makes everyone nervous. Trump is like, oh, who knows about NATO? It's obsolete, or who knows? And then Mike Pence says, we're totally behind NATO. This is, again, the world is like, are you really going to just let this keep going, America? And there are quick remedies that could happen. He could also learn and adjust. But look for some major activity the next couple weeks, especially around the end of February when we have the eclipse in the 7th house. And there may be some resignations, especially from some of the loyalists, like maybe Conway. Flynn is already gone. but some of these people might start talking, and I mean in the press, and I mean like, literally, like, these people are being approached. Understand this. These people are already being approached, perhaps potentially bribed, perhaps they already have dirt on many of them about where they're involved with things that could be illegal. Kellyanne Conway is one. Some of these other folks that we don't even know of, some of these other operatives, and they're basically probably being said, look, we have you on tape saying this. If you don't cooperate, you're going to go to jail. Now, you want to cooperate? What's going on? See, this is the way this stuff works. And how much do you think these people are going to be loyal? How much has Trump cultivated loyalty? He would fire any of them if he thought they would damage him. Now, he's shown himself to be remarkably loyal to the people that have helped him, but again, you got to question some of that loyalty. How much of it is loyalty because they know they got a lot of dirt on him? I'm not trying to be cynical about everything, because I think he's probably a loyal guy. He seems like it. And he does cultivate a certain amount of loyalty. But there's a lot going on behind the scenes right now, and when you know how these games work, and I'm watching the Astrology Eclipse right in the 7th house of other people, and eclipsed by them, just like he was eclipsed by his secrets. That eclipse in his 12th house, eclipsed by the secrets, the lies, the leaks, the losses, and it's been huge losses. He lost that immigration battle in the courts. Yes, he can resubmit it again, but it was a huge loss. This is a loss. You have your thing overturned and it gets overturned in the courts. That's a loss. No question. Flynn, National Security Advisor, leaving. That's a terrible loss. Not to mention where it might lead. So we're going to keep seeing this theme of losses from the 12th house leading to other people and what this compels other people to do. Leaks, losses, and then other people eclipsing in the 1st house. Again, when you look at his chart, Rahu is right on his ascendant now. Rahu is right on his ascendant, which shows unpredictable things coming. Jupiter, he's in Jupiter Dasha and it's now retrograde, which again shows things reversing. So I want to end it there. I have another video that I'm going to be doing here very soon, which talks about the eclipses that are coming this summer. You want to look out for that video because it's very powerful, and it basically compares this solar eclipse this year with one that happened a couple hundred years ago that I want to show you. So this update shows a lot of interesting things happening. Very clear. I knew this time would be a time where the stuff from that dossier would be coming out more. I thought it would be more on the solar eclipse, but it makes sense. It was a lunar eclipse in his 12th house. Let's look and see what happens with the solar eclipse and what comes out with the people around him. That includes his cabinet, his advisors, and more scrutiny brought to bear on this inner circle. We've already seen they're quite unreliable, and we may have a pretty crazy breakthrough around the solar eclipse, which happens in his 12th house, or sorry, happens in his 7th house.